Aram had been traveling for many days with his brown mare, Zara. He worked as a horse trainer and moved from village to village, teaching people how to ride, how to calm a nervous horse, and how to keep their animals healthy. His journeys were long, but he liked them. Every new place had a new story waiting for him. By the time he reached the mountain village, the sun was already dropping behind the tall peaks, painting everything in gold. His body was tired, the mare needed rest, and he hoped the village had a place for both of them. The village was quiet, filled with wooden houses and stone pathways. Smoke rose from chimneys, and the sound of distant bells traveled softly through the air. Arham led his horse to the market area, where a few villagers were still working. He planned to buy water and maybe find a small room to stay in. But as he reached the stalls, something unusual caught his eye. Near one of the storage areas stood a woman taller than anyone he had seen before. She was not only tall, she looked strong, capable, someone who carried heavy loads every day without asking for help. Her name, he would later learn, was Rima. She stood beside a large sack filled with grain, trying to move it alone. The sack was heavy, too heavy for one person, but she kept trying. Arham noticed how the people nearby glanced at her. Some even whispered to each other. She seemed used to it, but it still made her shoulders tense. Arham watched her quietly for a moment. She wasn't like the other villagers, and not because of her height alone. There was something in her eyes, a mix of focus and loneliness, as if she had trained herself to avoid asking anyone for help. He walked closer, gently pulling his mare along. "Do you need help?" he asked softly. Rima didn't look at him at first. She kept her hands on the sack and took a breath. She had heard that question before from strangers, but usually it came with a laugh or a teasing tone. When she finally looked up, Arham saw surprise in her eyes. She was taller than him by at least a head. Most men avoided talking to her directly because of that. "I can manage," she replied quickly. Her voice was strong, but it carried something else too, a shield she had built over the years. Arham didn't step away. He could tell she wasn't refusing out of pride, but out of habit. Still, he didn't want to push her. "All right," he said gently. "But if you change your mind, I'm right here." She blinked, almost confused by his tone. She had expected something else, maybe a joke, maybe a smirk. But Arham simply stood there, adjusting his horse's reins, giving her space. No pressure, no judgment. She tried lifting the sack again, and her hands slipped slightly on the rough fabric. It wobbled in place. Arham didn't say anything this time. He let her try. Quote, After a moment, she sighed and stepped aside. "Fine," she said quietly, not meeting his eyes. "You can help." Arham smiled warmly and moved beside her. Together, they lifted the sack with much less effort. He didn't talk much. He just followed her lead. When they set the sack down in the right place, she stood back and brushed dust from her hands. She still looked unsure of what to say. "Thank you," she finally managed. "You're welcome," Arham replied. "You were doing fine. It was just heavy." He meant it sincerely. And because his tone was honest, Rima felt a strange warmth inside her chest. Not the kind that embarrassed her, the kind that made her feel seen. Arham didn't know much about her yet, but he could sense that she wasn't used to kindness. Not simple kindness, at least. People probably had commented about her size for years, pretending to joke but unknowingly hurting her. She must have learned to work alone because it was easier than dealing with people. Rima returned to her work, but the quiet between them didn't feel heavy. Arham walked around the market to buy food for his mare and a meal for himself. Every now and then, he found his eyes drifting back to her. There was something unique about the way she moved, strong but careful, almost as if she tried to hide her strength to avoid drawing attention. As he walked past the other villagers, he heard small pieces of conversation. "She's too big for her age," someone whispered. "No man will look at her," another said. "She scares children." a woman murmured. Arham frowned. Their words were not loud, but loud enough for him to know Rima must have heard similar things all her life. He didn't like it. Not one bit. People judged too easily, especially when they didn't understand someone. Later, Arham found a small stable where he could rest his horse. The stable owner mentioned Rima, without being asked. She's a good girl, he said. Works hard, helps her father, but people treat her differently because of her height. Poor child grew up listening to comments. Arham nodded, understanding more. The stable owner continued. She avoids crowds, only comes out for work. Not many talk to her kindly. Arham stayed quiet for a moment, thinking about her face earlier. She wasn't cold or unfriendly. She was guarded, and it made sense. Wine. Arham stayed guarded. When evening came, Arham walked through the village again. The sky slowly turned darker, and lanterns were lit. He passed by Rima's house accidentally, noticing her carrying 2 buckets of water. The buckets looked heavy, but she carried them like they weighed nothing. Arham approached and offered help again. This time, she looked at him longer before answering. You traveled far? She asked instead of refusing. Yes, he replied with a smile. Many days on the road. Your horse looks strong, she said. She's my good companion, Arham said proudly. But even she is tired today. Rima nodded, and her expression softened. She seemed to understand his life a little better. For a brief moment, she didn't feel awkward around him. You can help with 1 bucket if you want, she said finally. Arham picked up the bucket without hesitation. Together, they walked toward her house. Her father greeted them kindly. He was shorter than Rima and looked older, with gentle eyes. Arham introduced himself, and Rima's father welcomed him warmly, offering water and a place to sit for a few minutes. While they talked, Arham noticed how Rima moved around the house. She was careful not to bump into anything. She had learned to make herself smaller, even though she couldn't. It made Arham feel something he didn't expect, a quiet admiration, mixed with empathy. After a short rest, Arham stood up to leave. Thank you for the water, he said. You're welcome, Rima's father replied. Come again if you need anything. Rima walked him to the door out of simple manners. But before he stepped outside, she spoke again. You're different, she said softly, almost in a whisper. Arham turned to her with a gentle smile. I see people for who they are, he said, not for what others say about them. Her eyes widened slightly, not expecting such words. Good night, Rima, he said. Good night, she replied, her voice softer than before. When Arham walked away, Rima stood in the doorway a little longer, watching him go. She didn't understand why a stranger's kindness affected her so deeply. But something inside her felt lighter that night, as if someone had removed a heavy stone she had been carrying for years. And Arham, as he walked toward the small room he rented for the night, thought about her too. He didn't know why, but something about her presence stayed in his mind. Something strong, quiet, and unforgettable. It was a simple first meeting, but it planted a seed neither of them knew would grow into something much bigger than both of them. The morning after Arham arrived in the village, the air felt cool and fresh. The mountains glowed softly under the early sunlight, and the fields were just waking up. Arham stepped out of the small room he had rented and stretched his arms. His horse, Zara, greeted him with a soft neigh, nudging his shoulder gently. He smiled and stroked her neck before preparing her food. While he worked, a boy from the village ran toward him in a hurry. His face was red from running, and he looked worried. Arham stopped what he was doing and bent down a little, so he could hear the boy clearly. Sir, one of the horses, from the lower farm. It ran away, the boy said between breaths. It climbed the rocky hill behind the mill. No one can reach it. Arham frowned. Horses running away was common, but climbing a steep, rocky path was dangerous. A misstep could injure the animal. He quickly finished feeding Zara and asked the boy to show him the place. As they walked, more villagers joined, all looking concerned. The rocky hill was not very high, but the path up was narrow, uneven, and slippery with loose stones. The escaped horse stood halfway up, confused and scared. It was neighing loudly, shifting its legs anxiously as it searched for a way down. One wrong movement could make it slip. Arham studied the path carefully. It would be hard for most people to climb up safely, and even if they managed to reach the horse, controlling it on such unstable ground would be risky. "Who usually handles this horse?" Arham asked. "Rima sometimes helps us when we need extra strength," a man replied. "She can pull heavy loads and climb slopes easily, but she avoids coming when there are many people." Arham understood immediately. She was still hiding herself from crowds, avoiding comments, avoiding attention. But right now, the horse needed help, and she was the only one strong enough to do the job safely. "Where is she?" Arham asked. One of the villagers pointed toward the nearby field. Rima was carrying a large water barrel, moving with steady steps. Arham jogged toward her, waving to catch her attention. She paused mid-step, confused to see him running. "What happened?" she asked. "A horse climbed up the rocky hill. It can't come down." Arham explained quickly. "We need your help." Rima blinked. "Me?" "Yes," Arham said without hesitation. "No one else can reach the horse and pull the rope while keeping balance. You're the strongest here. You can do it." Rima lowered her eyes. She looked unsure, almost uncomfortable. Being needed was something she wasn't used to. She helped her father. She did chores, but being asked in front of others, that always made her nervous. People stared. People whispered. She didn't want to be the center of attention. "I don't know," she said quietly. "There are many people there." Arham took a step closer, lowering his voice so only she could hear. "You don't have to think about them. Think about the horse. It needs someone brave, and I know you are brave." The way he said it made her heart shift slightly. Someone believing in her. That didn't happen often. Before she could answer, a loud neigh echoed from the hill. The horse was getting more restless. Rima took a breath and nodded. "Fine. I'll come." They walked back together. The villagers stepped aside as she approached, giving her space. Some watched in surprise, others in hope. Rima kept her eyes on the ground, not wanting to see the reactions. Arham guided her toward the safest route he could find. He tied a rope securely around his waist and handed the other end to her. "I'll go halfway," he said. "You stay behind me and keep the rope steady. If the horse moves too fast, your strength will help me hold him." Rima nodded, and together they started climbing. The path was narrow and filled with loose stones, but Rima's long legs and stable balance helped her move steadily. Arham was impressed. She moved like she had done things like this many times before. When one stone rolled under his foot, she grabbed his arm quickly, stopping him from slipping. "You all right?" she asked. "Yes," he said, genuinely grateful. "You saved me there." A tiny smile appeared on her face, but she quickly pushed it away and focused on the climb. When they reached the horse, it was trembling, eyes wide with fear. Arham spoke to it softly, trying to calm it. Rima stayed behind him, holding the rope tightly so neither he nor the horse would lose balance. "It's okay," Arham murmured to the horse. "We're here." Slowly, he placed his hand on its neck. The horse jerked slightly but didn't back away. Rima tightened the rope with perfect control. Arham could feel her strength through the tension. It felt steady, like an anchor. "Good," he said quietly. He tied the rope around the horse's body gently. Then he signaled Rima to step down slowly, while holding the rope tight. She braced her feet firmly and moved with strength and precision. The horse followed Arham's lead, taking small steps downward. Halfway down, the horse slipped on a loose stone. For a moment, panic shot through the villagers watching below. But Rima reacted fast. She leaned back, using her weight to counter the horse's fall. The rope tightened, stopping the animal just in time. Her arms shook with effort, but she didn't let go. Arham steadied the horse from the side. "You're doing great," he called out to her. Rima didn't speak, but her eyes showed determination. She wasn't about to let anything go wrong. Step by step, they made their way down until they reached firm ground. As soon as they touched the flat earth, the villagers cheered with relief. "You saved it. Good job, Rima. That was amazing." For the first time, the voices were not whispering or mocking. They were full of admiration. Rima stood silently, unsure how to react. She wasn't used to praise. She didn't know what expression she should show. Arham approached her, wiping sweat from his forehead. Rima looked away shyly. "You were the one calming the horse. But you were the one holding us steady," he replied. "Without you, it could have gone badly." She didn't know what to say to that. Her heart felt warm again, the same warmth she felt last night. The villagers gathered around the horse, checking if it had any injuries. Meanwhile, Rima stepped back, hoping the attention would fade. But Arham followed her gently. "You did something important today," he said. "You need to know that." Rima picked up a small stone with her foot, pushing it aside nervously. "People usually just stare," she said quietly. "Today, they looked at me differently, because they finally saw what I saw yesterday," Arham said. "Your strength isn't something to hide. It's something valuable." Her breath caught in her chest for a moment. She wasn't used to hearing such things. She wasn't used to kindness that sounded real. "Thank you," she murmured. "Any time," Arham replied warmly. As the villagers led the rescued horse away, Arham and Rima walked back together. This time, the silence between them felt comfortable, not awkward. For Rima, it was strange, but pleasant. For Arham, it was satisfying to see her shoulders not hunched, not fearful, but relaxed. Neither of them realized it then. But the moment they saved the horse together was the moment something new began to grow between them. Something quiet, gentle, and strong. The days after the horse rescue moved slowly, but gently for both Arham and Rima. Something had changed between them, though neither spoke about it directly. The villagers, who earlier only whispered about Rima, now greeted her with more respect. A few even thanked her again when they saw her passing by. Rima accepted their words quietly, unsure how to deal with sudden attention. But inside her heart, a small flame of confidence began to burn. Arham stayed in the village longer than he originally planned. His horse needed rest. But the truth was, he didn't want to leave so soon. He found reasons to stay, helping repair the fences, teaching children how to sit on a horse properly, or showing the farmers how to calm nervous foals. Every day brought a new reason for him to walk through the market, hoping he might see Rima again. And he always did. Sometimes she was carrying heavy baskets. Sometimes she was helping her father tie ropes around bundles of wheat. Sometimes she walked silently from the well, with 2 buckets of water. The village seemed to move around her. But she looked like someone who never expected anything from life except hard work. Arham admired that. Many people complained, but she never did. One afternoon, the village prepared for its annual mountain festival. It was a celebration of the harvest season, a tradition older than the village itself. People decorated their horses with colorful cloth, bells, and ribbons. Children practiced dancing. Women prepared food for the evening feast. The men set up wooden torches along the path leading into the mountains. As Arham walked through the marketplace, he heard a group of young men practicing for the procession. They were talking excitedly about the couple's ride, an old custom where pairs rode the horses up the mountain trail during sunset. It was considered a special moment for those who joined. Arham had never been part of such a tradition, but he found it interesting. When he reached the stall, where he usually bought food, he spotted Rima standing nearby with her father. She was helping him adjust a wooden crate filled with vegetables. Arham walked toward them with a warm smile. Rima glanced at him briefly, then looked away, pretending to focus on her work. But her father smiled widely. "You are becoming part of the village now," he said to Arham. "Everyone likes your help." Arham laughed softly. "People here are kind, and I enjoy being useful." Rima paused in her task, pretending she wasn't listening, though every word reached her. Her father continued, "You should join the festival tonight. The procession is beautiful. You should see it." Arham nodded politely, but his eyes drifted toward Rima. "Do people join alone or in pairs?" he asked gently. Rima stiffened slightly, sensing where this might go. "Usually in pairs," her father said. "A man and a woman share a horse. It's an old custom, but anyone can ride if they want." Arham looked directly at Rima now. "Would you join me?" The words were simple, spoken softly, but they hit her like a heavy wave. Her hands froze on the edge of the crate. She didn't lift her eyes. "Me?" she whispered. "Yes," Arham said without hesitation. Her breath caught. She stepped back slightly, her heart beating too fast. She didn't know what to say, but her mind filled instantly with fears she had carried for years. Crowds, stares, whispering voices, people noticing her height, people comparing her to others. The idea of sitting behind Arham, riding together where everyone could see them. It made her chest tighten. "I'm too big," she said quietly, almost like an apology. "I'm not meant for things like this." Arham didn't blink. He didn't act surprised or confused. Instead, he smiled softly, almost proudly, like he had expected her answer, but was prepared for it. "Your size doesn't scare me," he said calmly. Rima shook her head. "People will stare. They always do." "Let them stare," he replied. "They stared when you rescued the horse. But that day, they saw something brave. Today, they will see the same." Rima's father watched them quietly, saying nothing. He understood his daughter better than anyone. He knew her fears, her insecurities, and how she had spent her whole life fighting them alone. Rima looked at Arham with uncertainty. "What if the horse can't carry?" But Arham interrupted her by stepping closer and mounting his horse smoothly. His movements were confident but gentle. Once seated, he turned to face her with a steady look. "Try me anyway," he said with a smile. The words carried a strength she wasn't expecting. He wasn't mocking her. He wasn't daring her out of amusement. He was inviting her, proving through his calmness that nothing about her frightened him. Rima stood silent, stunned. She wasn't used to anyone pushing past her walls. She wasn't used to anyone offering her a place beside them. She wasn't used to anyone treating her as if she belonged. And maybe that was why she didn't answer. Maybe that was why she simply stepped back. "I need some time," she whispered. Arham nodded gently. "Take all the time you need. I'll wait by the stables before sunset." He didn't pressure her. He didn't argue. He simply left her with a choice, something she rarely felt she had in life. The rest of the day went by slowly for Rima. Every task she did felt heavier. Not because of the physical weight, but because her mind kept returning to Arham's invitation. She remembered the way he looked at her, not with fear, not with hesitation, but with quiet admiration. She remembered how he spoke to her, how he didn't see her size as something strange or shameful. But old fears are hard to fight. She wondered what people might say if she joined him. She wondered if she would look awkward, sitting behind him on the festival ride. She wondered if she should even allow herself to hope. Meanwhile, Arham spent the afternoon preparing his horse. He brushed Zara's coat gently, decorated her with ribbons the children handed him, and made sure the saddle was secure. While he worked, He found himself thinking about Rima's expression when he asked her. The fear in her eyes hurt him more than he expected. He wished she knew how strong and admirable she was. He wished she knew how many people noticed her courage after the rescue. As the sun began to set, villagers gathered near the stables. Horses lined up with colorful cloths, bells, and shining accessories. People laughed, talked, and waited for the procession to begin. Arham stood beside Zara, his eyes scanning the crowd. He told himself not to expect too much. He told himself she might not come. He told himself she might still be afraid. But deep inside, he hoped. Rima stood far away, hidden behind a small shed. She watched the crowd with a trembling heart. So many people. So many eyes. She held her hands together tightly, trying to steady herself. She remembered Arham's smile, his gentle tone, his unwavering belief in her. For years, she had lived quietly, letting others decide who she was. But maybe, just maybe, it was time to change something. She took a slow breath, then another, and then she took a step forward. Not fast, not confidently. And that step changed everything. Rima took slow steps toward the stables, each one heavier than the last. But she didn't stop. Her heart beat fast, louder than the sounds of the festival around her. People were laughing, children were running, bells on the horses were jingling, and torches were being lit, one by one. The whole village looked excited, glowing with warm orange light as the sun slowly dipped behind the mountains. But Rima barely noticed any of it. Her mind was filled with a single thought: Arham was waiting. When she finally reached the stables, she paused behind one of the wooden posts and looked around nervously. Arham stood beside Zara, adjusting the saddle and speaking gently to the horse. He looked calm, almost peaceful, as if he believed she would come. There were many people around, preparing for the ride. But Arham's focus was only on the path ahead. Rima watched him for a few seconds. Her hands trembled. She wasn't sure if she had the courage to walk out from behind the post. She felt too tall, too noticeable, too different. She imagined everyone turning, staring at her, whispering like they always had when she entered crowded places. But then Arham lifted his head slightly, as if sensing her presence. He turned toward her, and their eyes met. He didn't look shocked or unsure. His expression didn't change into anything uncomfortable. Instead, a soft smile appeared on his face, the same warm smile he always gave her, the one that made her feel safe in ways she couldn't explain. He raised his hand slightly toward her, not forcing, not calling loudly, just offering a small gesture that said she was welcome. Rima felt her breath catch in her throat. But she walked forward. Every step she took made her feel more exposed. People did turn to look. Some whispered. Some stared longer than needed. Her heart tightened, but she didn't stop walking. She kept her eyes on Arham because he was the only one who didn't look at her strangely. His eyes were steady, filled with patience, understanding, and something deeper she didn't dare name yet. When she reached him, she stopped a few feet away. Her hands twisted together, nervously. "You came," Arham said gently. She lowered her eyes. I wasn't sure if I should." "I'm glad you did," he replied softly. Rima swallowed, her voice shaking slightly. "Are you sure the horse will be okay?" she asked, looking at Zara with concern. She didn't want to be the reason anything went wrong. "Zara is strong. She can carry both of us," Arham said. "Besides, she trusts us. And I trust you." Those simple words made something warm bloom in her chest again. She nodded slowly. Arham mounted the horse first with his usual easy grace. Then he extended his hand toward her once more, this time in a steady invitation. Rima hesitated. She had never sat behind someone on a horse. She always rode alone when she helped with farm work. The idea of sitting so close to someone, especially a man, made her nervous. But Arham waited, giving her time. Finally, she stepped forward. She placed her hand in his, and he held it firmly, helping her climb. She swung her leg over the saddle, carefully, sitting behind him. The horse shifted slightly, but Zara did not seem bothered. The moment Rima settled into place, the world seemed to quiet around her. She held the saddle tightly at first, unsure of where to put her hands. Arham sensed her discomfort and spoke calmly. "You can hold my waist," he said gently. "It will be easier that way when the horse moves." Her face warmed with embarrassment, but she slowly placed her hands on his sides. Her touch was hesitant at first, but Arham didn't move away. Instead, he straightened his posture slightly, giving her more space to settle comfortably. "You're doing great," he said softly, not turning around. Rima took a deep breath. She could hear the distant chatter of the villagers, the crackling of torches, and the rustling of horses. But all she could truly feel was the quiet steadiness of the man in front of her. Soon, the procession began. One by one, the horses started moving toward the mountain trail. Bells jingled softly with each step, and the evening sky turned deeper shades of orange and pink. Arham nudged Zara forward gently. Zara began to walk, steady and confident. Rima tightened her grip slightly, but Arham spoke calmly. "She's fine," he said. "Just relax. She knows what she's doing." Rima let out a small breath and tried to loosen her muscles. After a few seconds, she felt the rhythm of the horse. It wasn't frightening as she expected. It felt steady, safe, and being behind Arham felt even safer. As they moved through the village, people looked at them. Some smiled. Some looked surprised. Some whispered, but no one laughed, and no one mocked. In fact, many seemed impressed. Rima noticed it. Her eyes softened a little. She had never been part of something like this before. She had always stayed behind while others enjoyed festivals. But today, for the first time, she felt included. When they reached the mountain path, the view became even more beautiful. A line of horses moved slowly up the trail, their lanterns glowing softly. The mountains stood tall and peaceful, and the cool wind brushed against their faces. Rima watched everything with a sense of wonder. She had seen these mountains all her life, but riding through them like this, surrounded by warmth, lights, and gentle music, made them feel different. Arham spoke quietly. "Beautiful, isn't it?" "Yes," she whispered. "Very beautiful." After a moment, she added, "Thank you for asking me." Arham smiled, even though she couldn't see his face clearly from behind. "Thank you for trusting me." Rima looked down at her hands, still holding him gently. She felt her heart soften in a way she couldn't describe. Being close to him didn't feel scary anymore. It felt comforting, natural, as if she belonged there. The trail continued upward until they reached a wide, flat spot overlooking the entire village. People began to stop there, letting their horses rest. The view was breathtaking. Hundreds of lanterns glowed in the valley below. The sky above was turning dark blue, the first stars appearing. Rima gazed at it silently, feeling something inside her open like a flower finally allowed to bloom. Arham looked back slightly and spoke softly. "Rima?" She replied with a quiet hum. "You deserve moments like this," he said. "You deserve to feel proud, happy, and free." Rima's breath hitched. No one had ever told her anything like that. She felt her eyes sting slightly, but she blinked quickly to stop the feeling. "No one ever said that to me before," she whispered. Arham replied gently. "Then they didn't see you the way I do." Rima didn't know how to answer. She didn't know how to hold the warmth spreading through her chest, but she didn't want it to fade. The festival moment lasted long, filled with soft music, warm lights, and peaceful silence. And through all of it, Rima sat behind Arham, feeling for the first time that she wasn't too big, too strange, or too different. She felt valued. She felt strong. She felt seen. By the time they began riding back toward the village, The fear that once lived in her heart had softened so much, she barely recognized it anymore. She didn't know it yet, but this night would stay with her forever. When Arham and Rima returned from the mountain ride, the village was filled with soft music, warm lanterns, and the smell of fresh food. People were laughing, children were dancing with small wooden toys, and families sat together enjoying the night. But for Rima, the world felt oddly quiet, even peaceful. As if the long ride had wrapped her heart in a gentle warmth she wasn't ready to let go of. As Arham helped her get down from the horse, she landed on the ground carefully. For a moment, she felt lightheaded not from fear, but from a strange happiness she had never felt before. Standing close to him, looking at the lantern light reflecting in his eyes, she realized something simple but powerful. Someone had finally made her feel like she belonged. Arham didn't step back immediately. He stood beside her, giving her a moment to steady herself. "You did amazing," he said softly, his voice warm. Rima looked down at her hands. "I was scared, at first. And now?" Arham asked gently. Rima lifted her eyes slowly. "Now I feel good." She hesitated, trying to find the right words. "Like I didn't break anything. Like I didn't make things worse. Like I was enough. Number 4. All redder. Number 4. I was enough." Arham smiled a soft, proud smile that made her heart flutter. "You were more than enough." For a moment, neither spoke. The air between them felt warm and quiet. Then a group of villagers approached to thank Arham for helping earlier in the week and to congratulate Rima for joining the ride. She felt her face heat up with embarrassment. But this time, she didn't step back or hide behind anyone. She simply accepted their words. "You looked confident up there. You rode beautifully. We were happy to see you join." Each comment surprised her more than the last. She wasn't used to people appreciating her. And while she didn't know how to respond perfectly, she managed small nods and shy smiles. Arham watched her with a quiet pride in his eyes. Seeing her stand taller, not shrinking away, made him feel something deep inside, something that pulled him closer to her, without him even realizing it. After the crowd drifted away, the night grew calmer. The festival music softened, and groups of families and friends sat around small fires. Arham and Rima walked together through the village road, their steps slow and peaceful. "Why do you stay longer in our village?" Rima suddenly asked, her voice gentle but curious. Arham looked at her calmly. "Because I like it here." Rima tilted her head slightly. "It's a small place, not much to see. There's something here I don't find everywhere," he replied. "What?" she asked quietly. Arham didn't answer immediately. Instead, he looked at her with steady eyes, the kind that didn't waver or avoid. "Someone," he said, finally. Rima froze. "Someone?" Arham nodded. She felt her heart beat hard in her chest, her breath caught. Arham smiled a small, soft smile. "You." Silence fell between them, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It felt heavy with meaning, as if the world had paused for a moment. Rima's cheeks warmed, and she couldn't meet his eyes. "No one has ever said anything like that to me," she whispered. "People usually just look at me and then look away." "People didn't know you," Arham replied gently. "They only saw your height. They didn't see your strength, or your kindness, or how brave you are." Rima looked down, emotions swirling inside her. "I am not brave all the time. I was scared when you asked me to ride with you." "Being scared doesn't make you weak," Arham said. "Walking through fear makes you strong." Rima breathed in slowly. The words touched her more than she expected. As they walked farther, they reached her house. The lantern outside flickered softly. Her father waited on the porch, a gentle smile on his face when he saw them approaching. You both are late, he said playfully. Did you enjoy the ride? Rima hesitated, then nodded. Yes, Baba. More than I thought I would. Her father's smile widened. Good. You deserved a night like this. He looked at Arham gratefully. Thank you for looking after my daughter. Mar. Arham shook his head. She looked after me too. We both took care of each other. Rima's father understood more than he showed. He had seen the way Rima looked at Arham when she thought no one was paying attention. And he had seen the way Arham stood protectively near her since the moment they met. After a few minutes of warm conversation, her father went inside, leaving the two alone again at the door. Rima hesitated before speaking. You didn't have to stay in the village so long, she said carefully. I know, Arham replied. You didn't have to ask me for the ride. I know. And you didn't have to say those things, she whispered. Arham stepped a little closer. I wanted to. Rima felt her heart race again. No one had ever spoken to her like this, not with pity, not with hesitation, but with simple honesty. After a silent moment, she looked up. Are you going to leave soon? Arham took a slow breath. I haven't decided. Because of me? She asked, her voice faint. Because I want to see where this goes, he said softly. If you want that too. Rima looked away shyly, unsure how to express everything inside her heart. But a slow, small smile grew on her face. I think I want that, she whispered. Arham's expression softened with relief and happiness. For him, this moment felt like the beginning of something real. For Rima, it felt like the first time in her life someone chose her, not out of need, not out of convenience, but out of genuine care. The night breeze moved softly between them. I'll see you tomorrow? Arham asked. Tomorrow, she agreed softly. As he walked away, Rima stood by the door for a long time, watching him disappear into the quiet road lit by dim lanterns. She touched the edge of the door lightly, feeling her heart beating in a way she never imagined possible. The girl who once hid from everyone, the girl who believed she was too big, too strange, too different, now felt seen, now felt special, now felt brave. All because one man saw her worth before she ever believed she had any. And slowly, gently, a new beginning unfolded. One that neither of them had planned, but both were ready to embrace.